before his death, when he was in Chialda's NRS hospital, after his operations, he was lying there. And my brother used to stay with him. I used to visit him every day from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock in the evening. Now, before my father had cancer, my father had tuberculosis. You have heard about this particular disease? It's called TB. TB or tuberculosis. Tuberculosis is quite serious a disease, and my father had to be given heavy medication. And due to the side effect of medicine, normally TB patients lose either eyesight or ear. Meaning, due to the side effect, the patient might lose his ability to see or his ability to listen or hear things. For my father, it was the ear which were gone, which means towards the end of his life, he could not hear anything. But you know, na, those people who can't hear anything, they believe nobody in the world can also hear. So they speak way more loudly. Right? On, and you are trying to talk to someone. In normal cases, you will say, hello, how are you? But when you have earphone on, you say, hello, how are you? Yes, I'm good. This is how my father used to speak, right? Which is like for normal people. People are like, why is this guy shouting so much? Now one day, I tell you one monster. One day, I went to see my father at NRS hospital, and I found that after 2 beds, there was one patient who had died. Okay? So they have wrapped up that patient's body, and their relatives were circling around that particular body, and people were really sad. Those relatives were crying because they have lost their relative. They were crying and all that. I went to my father to check how he is. I said, Baba, bhalo acho? My father, who could not hear anything, used to think that nobody could hear. My father is like I'm like, Baba, bhalo acho? And my father is like, Oi lokta more gache. I'm like, Oi lokta more gache. I'm like, please be silent. So by this time, the relatives of that particular patient who had died, they started looking who's shouting. I'm like, okay, be silent. My father could not hear anything. So my father is like, Kalke oke ene chilo. Kalke moro moro chilo. I was like, please be silent. Now those guys, those relatives who were staying, he's like, who's this guy? Aage hospital e anle beche jeto. Like, okay, that's okay. Now be silent. Loktaga deri kore hena che. I'm like, yaar, please you be silent na yaar. Why are you shouting? Hey, log bulayo ke mere fellow. Now imagine the embarrassment. They have just lost their relative. And my father is shouting at the top of the voice, informing everybody in the hospital that because of the callousness of those relatives only, this particular gentleman had died. This is how my father was. Okay? So from this story, if I ask Chinmay, and then I'll go to Saurav is frozen? No, Saurav is there. Saurav, I'll go to you after I am done with Chinmay. Chinmay, what was the problem that my father had?
He lost hair and
He lost his hearing capacity.
hearing capacity.
That's it? Is that the only problem that you could think of about my father? That he could not hear?
স্যার বাংলায় বলতে ইংরেজি বলতে পারছি না।
Pachis, you're saying good, like everybody would agree with it, right? Chinmay is speaking good English. Don't give up. Try. Speak.
And she lost her, and she
He could not hear. That's his one problem. What else? One second. Yes, Chinmay, what was the next one? তুই বাংলায় বলবি যখন ঠিক করেছিলি তার মানে তুই উত্তর জানিস। উত্তর যদি জানিস তুই ইংরেজিতে বল। তুই তো ঠিকই পাচ্ছিস, ভয় পাচ্ছিস কেন? Okay, who else would like to talk about one more characteristics that you could understand about my father from this second story?
Since he also lost her common sense due to his disease.
Yes, yes, thank you. Thank you. That's the right answer. In fact, my father was someone who never had this. He did not bother ever about what others are thinking. You know, like in the childhood story, when he could hear, he could see and everything, at that point of time, he did not bother about what his son wanted. He was in his own zone at that point of time. You need this, you get this. I would give you whatever, I can give you. And when he lost his hearing capacity, even when he had cancer and lying on a hospital, then also he did not bother about what others are thinking and what others are believing. By the way, these two stories that I told you, they are true stories. But I love my father a lot. Right? He was someone, in both cases, I'll share this thing, in both cases. And if there are other stories that I tell you about my father, you would gradually understand. My father was not overly protective of me. He used to love me a lot, but he never pampered me. He never overly protected me. He always allowed me to get out in the world and do things on my own, not to depend on somebody else. I believe as a parent, this is a very, very valuable lesson that one can teach the children. If a parent is very protective, very caring, very nurturing, and fulfills all the need that a son or a daughter has, that particular dad or that particular mother probably will not be making the son or daughter ready for the cruel world which is out there. Would you not agree with me? So that's a very, very important contribution that my father had. Okay? I've got about 5 minutes. I'll tell you one story about my mother. Okay? And then I'll take your opinion before I go. Right? And then I'll summarize.